Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of our audience around the world today, and thank you for tuning in to our third in the Marketing Science webinar series. Having previously produced webinars on marketing science and content marketing for life sciences, after much demand, we now welcome you to the Search Engine Marketing for Science webinar. So my name is Frank Barker, and I am the Chief Marketing Officer for AZO Network. We have two specialists with us today in Ben Stibbs-Eaton, our lead creative copywriter, and Matt Rafferty, who is our head of paid search. How are we, gentlemen?
Not too bad, thanks for having us.
Good.
Very well, thank you, Frank.
Good. We'll be hearing more from them later, but first, a quick bit of housekeeping to help you get the most from the webinar today. Now, firstly, I urge you to shut down your email and remove any distractions, explore the various sections of the webinar auditorium, and engage the functions available, the additional resources. The webinar and associated resources will be emailed to you afterwards. We'll be running a number of audience polls during the webinar, so please chime in and share your perspective. Now, we welcome any questions or common issues that you may have experienced. And many of you have already sent through some great thought-provoking questions, so thank you. And we will do our best to answer all of them. If we can't, we will answer them by email separately. Now, finally, if you happen to experience any technical issues during the event, the easy fix tends to be a simple refresh of the webinar auditorium page. However, the recording of the webinar will be available after the event, so don't worry if you're not able to hear the whole thing. Now, just to give you a brief overview of what we're going to talk about today, we're looking at the introduction of paid versus organic search, and then we move on to 6 steps to consistent blog writing with Ben. Before we move on to Google Ads and how to set up and optimize a Google Ads campaign with Matt Rafferty, before finishing off with Q&A and trying to answer some of your common issues that you have with search engine marketing. So we use a nice analogy when we liken the difference between paid search and organic search, or organic SEO. Lots of people do think that they are mutually exclusive or antonyms. However, we're going to dive into that, dispel the myths, and show how how paid and organic can really work well together. But firstly, the analogy we use is actually comparable to renting a house versus buying a house. Now, you can move into a penthouse tomorrow by paying $1,000 a month, and you can stay there at the top of Google Towers as long as you are paying the going rate. However, as soon as you stop paying the rent, you're out on the street. So this is how we frame paid search. Whereas you can spend a little more time and effort on creating your own home built on solid foundations, where you and your family can live till the end of your days. Now, this is a little harder to do, but ultimately will stand the test of time and is certainly worth it. Now, this is how we refer to organic SEO. Now, as a marketing manager, I have a broad skill set, but I've become somewhat of a generalist and a project manager who is working with lots of experts and specialists in their field, such as Ben and Matt. I work with graphic designers, full stack developers, copywriters, video specialists, animation specialists, CRM architects, and I sit in the middle as a project manager. Hopefully this is striking a chord with a lot of you guys. So I have a broad, if a little unspecialized understanding across many disciplines. Where I need expertise, however, I'm not afraid to bring it in. And that's certainly the case with search engine marketing, as we'll be hearing from the guys shortly. And I'll be asking them to guide me through their processes, and I won't be afraid to ask the obvious questions. So now I'd like to welcome our first guest, all the way from Liverpool, the home of the Beatles. He's our very own paperback writer, a true wordsmith and poet extraordinaire. He's our lead creative copywriter and currently in the middle of writing his first novel. It's Mr. Ben Stibbs. Ben, welcome, and tell us a little bit more about your background.
Thanks for having me, Frank, and thanks for the kind words. So yeah, as you said, I specialize in blog writing, and that's not exclusive to blog writing. It's content writing for sites, for client sites and for our own site. And in the field of paid versus organic SEO, my specialism is obviously in organic. I write blogs and I write content for people for their sites so we can improve their organic page 1 positions and improve their traffic to their site.
Okay, excellent. So to kick things off, do you want to just outline what you're going to talk about today?
Yeah, sure. So I've got a few points prepared. These will generally come down under the structure of the 6 steps to consistent blog writing. I frame these as keyword research, title suggestions, which basically comes under your content plan, so your blog titles and any page content. Some of the general principles of blog writing, because that is really fundamental to what we're doing. The drafting process, which goes behind all of the written content on site. Optimizing for the CMS, which comes under formatting, and then also your internal linking strategy. So we're going to have a bit of a deep dive into each one of those.
Fantastic. Okay, so to kick things off, do you want to show us how keyword research sets the tone for any campaign?
Yeah, sure. So your initial keyword research is the framework for everything you do in the rest of your SEO campaign. It underlines all of the on-site optimization you're going to be doing, and it does dictate the content plan that you're going to be coming up with. By that I mean that all of your written content, from your landing pages to your blog posts, should be aligned with this initial research, which also means meeting a particular keyword density within all of the on-site stuff. Formatting the content so that your keywords and any semantically related phrases are featured prominently. And linking through to any relevant landing pages. So if we just look at this example here, which is on the ASO Network site, this article is about how to achieve a featured snippet in Google, which is one of the prominent positions in page 1. It's always in the top 5 positions, and it tends to look like this with a bit of an answer box. They're becoming increasingly rich and dynamic at the moment. So this article was written by another SEO expert, Jess, and the keyword focus of this one was the term featured snippet. So if we look, if we do a quick site search and see how many times that this phrase actually appears within the page, you can see it highlighted here. It's consistent throughout the actual body of the text. It's appearing in the headers, and it's supported by, as I say, these screenshots and these screen grabs that we've got from Google search engine results pages. So some people find that shoehorning keywords in can actually be detrimental to the legibility, and there is this idea, almost, if we go back to this concept, that paid search and organic search are dichotomies of one another. The idea that writing for users and writing for Google is a versus heavyweight match, essentially. That's not the case. You want to be able to marry these principles together so that you're writing content that is optimized for both human beings and for search engines. And doing it like this, as I say, having a keyword density within about 3 to 4%, and spreading it consistently throughout the page tells Google that this is relevant to your search term and it doesn't overload the user.
Okay, so I'm going to test you now on this one. So how many words is that article?
That's roughly 1,400 words, I think.
All right, and how many times? Is it 37 times the
37.
Word? Yeah, so what's that as a percentage?
So I mean, I'm a wordsmith, not a mathematician, but I think it's about 3%. And that is within our benchmark of what we aim for. And as I say, it's a relative parameter that you're looking at. You don't want to say you need to have your keyword appear 37 times in any article, because some of them will be 300 words long, and then that would just be atrocious to read.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. So on title suggestions, how do you come up with title suggestions, having done your keyword research?
Yeah. So this comes back to the what I said before about the content plan, and it's specific to blog writing and writing for your news page. It doesn't have to be blog per se. That's just a catch-all term that we use to say blog, news, etc. But I always, without fail, start with the keyword research and go from there when it comes to coming up with titles. So blog posts typically perform well when you're targeting top and middle funnel search queries. So you can get some quick wins by taking your keyword research and using that in relation to Google's micro moments. What I mean by that is, a long time ago now, Google came up with these 4 micro moments, which are the game-changing moments that really matter in terms of people performing searches. So they essentially say that all search queries put through Google break down into one of these 4 moments. It's whether somebody's looking to research something, whether they're looking to purchase something. And just by doing a quick Google search of your keyword, you can get a sense of where the search term appears within one of these 4 moments. So if we just look here, what is a featured snippet? We take the actual title and we scroll through. We can see it's not particularly branded. There's no massive names jumping out at us. There's no images, no videos. It's mostly text and it's mostly questions. So you can see that this snippet, or sorry, this keyword falls generally in the I want to know moments, which is why we target one of those very basic questions, which is how to get a featured snippet in Google. So questions like what is X, what is Y, they're a really good way of trying to achieve some quick wins. Also, just becoming more familiar with whatever the concept is an important part of not just writing for digital, but any sort of writing that you undertake. Doing a quick Google search and then going through a few of these and familiarizing yourself with not just what the topic is about, but also what other people are writing about, so that you can try and find a niche and you can also try and emulate what they're doing well. Just a quick one further to that as well. We can deep dive further into these 4 moments and look at the actual search intent for what people are doing. So when we say search intent, these actually break down further. There are a few different models looking at how these could become a lot more granular, with as many as 9 different moments now people are suggesting. For example, people are specifically looking for video content, people are specifically looking for images, and you can try and tailor your content that way by making sure that you're getting a lot of, if you have a video embedded in here, for example, if you have more images put throughout, if you have a scrollable gallery of images, that might increase your potential for getting page 1 positions and these more prominent featured snippets for competitive search terms for those particular results pages.
Yeah, voice search as well, and
yeah, exactly.
Audio clips. I've seen them starting to index more and more different types of rich media.
Yeah, and those voice searches are obviously, perhaps not obviously, but they are particularly geared towards those search terms where it is more question based. If you're sat there at home and you're asking Alexa something, you tend to sit there and ask, what is this? Where do I find that? Which is why we're seeing those top of the funnel content becoming a lot more prominent.
I seem to remember you have written a blog piece around the 9 different types of search intent.
Yeah. So there is a blog live on our site, which is what is search intent for SEO. I'm sure we can get the URL of that in the resources.
Yeah, I think that is in the resources, along with some great tools for keyword research.
SEMrush, which we do have a quick example from SEMrush here, which is another one to help you out with topic research. You type in a keyword string here, and then it will bring up a lot of different suggestions that are already performing within Google. Some example headlines and related terms popped around in this mind map here. So yeah, a really great tool.
Okay, and all that's available in the resource section. So please do have a look. I'll just remind you there to have a look in there. Some great stuff in there. Okay, so next question is, how is the writing for the user, against the writing for Google's or for search engines, how's that evolved over time?
Yeah, so this goes back to that heavyweight match we were talking about before, about balancing the SEO principles with the user experience. Essentially, it's a lot harder nowadays for SEO experts to get away with black hat tactics, which were keyword stuffing and things like that, essentially sacrificing the user experience by using this knowledge of what performs well in Google to get content into page 1 positions that really didn't service the purpose of the user. If we have a look here, another great resource from Search Engine Land. This is the periodic table of SEO rank factors, and this is consistently growing, and it essentially tries to give you a nice visual overview of the different factors that determine how well content ranks on site. So you see here content, HTML structure, the actual architecture, various things like that. And these all play an important role in how your site is going to rank in those prominent positions. You can see that just algorithmically, search engines are just a lot more dynamic now. They consider a lot more, and that all comes back from the feedback loop of millions, billions of users every single day performing search terms and performing queries. This constant loop is just making it impossible for people to get away with trying to hoodwink Google at the expense of the user. So you really have to try and find a balance between the two. As I say, if we jump back to Jess's article here, it's a really great example of how to balance your SEO principles with your actual legibility.
Nice. I have to say algorithmically, that'd be a good Scrabble word if ever I've heard one. So next question, is the first draft ever the last one?
Yeah, it can be. It's uncommon. And it's also not something to necessarily aim towards, because I personally find the drafting process is really important. How often have you written something that you think is perfect, or you've done something that you think is flawless, and you hand it over to somebody else and they just spot an easy mistake? So I'd always encourage people to circulate even the finished draft to as many colleagues as possible, because editing is a collaborative process and it's always worth getting those insights from different perspectives. So whether you send it out to sales personnel, product managers, or other marketers, go for it. If again, this article with Jess, even though she is an expert and she has exceptional writing experience, she's been doing this job for years. She passed this through to me. She passed it through to yourself, Frank. She's sent it off to a couple of other marketers, and it did go through a few hands before it got to a finished position. And this is doing pretty well. Yeah. So as I say, I would always recommend passing that around.
Fantastic. So yeah, I suppose this article, on to the next question, it's a great example of formatting. You can see that it's much more than just a block of text. So how important is formatting for SEO?
Yeah, it's crucial. The actual visibility of the site and how users are going to view it is one of the factors that we see. The actual quality of the text, the way it's structured, pops up in these rank factors. And by that, it essentially means what the page actually looks like. So you see it's broken up here with headers. As I said before, we've got these different screen grabs which are visually informative, calls to action embedded throughout. They are really important. At the risk of flogging this article, I'll jump over to another one to show another great example. This was written by Stu, one of our marketers. And again, there's a lot of text, there's a lot of information, but then we jump in and all of a sudden we've got these lists, we've got these quotes popping out, we've got ASO top tips, we've got charts, other links, CTAs, things like that. And as I say, this isn't just a factor of making sure it looks pretty. Google will recognize that this is what people want to see. So in terms of how to actually implement that, you want to essentially be planning this from the Word document onwards. You want to have your structure in place. But then when you move it over to your content management system, you'll then be looking at actually optimizing that, putting your link structures in, making sure that that you've got the right consistency in terms of H1s, H2s, H3s. Well, only a single H1 on site, and then the rest of them break down accordingly. Yeah, you just need to make sure that you're consistent with those and that it's going on from start to finish.
All right. Moving on. Next question is, why would we use internal links or internal linking structure?
Sure. Okay. So internal links are another one of those really foundational aspects of what you're going to be doing when you're putting written content online. It's another way that the organic process blends well into the paid search process. I work really closely with Matt, and we try and make sure that everything that I'm putting live on client sites is linking through to the relevant landing pages, which may or may not be targeted by what he's doing. So we try and make sure that where there's an overlap between this linking through, it's valuable. And where there is going to be an invaluable overlap, we steer clear of what the other one's doing and make sure that we're targeting different areas. So the two of us are spinning completely different plates in that aspect. But this all comes down to essentially the main principle of it, which is when you're writing this content, you obviously want it to perform well in its own right. If we're talking about blog posts, the ideal is you get your page one position blog post, and you're getting a lot of traffic driven through that, you're getting a lot of engagement. But you also want to be making sure that that blog post is linking through to a particular landing page with the same keyword, so that you're lending traffic to that where the value tends to lie for the client. So it might be a product page, it might be a campaign page that they particularly are focused on driving. And by having an extra completely optimized page that is got this strong linking structure in place that is competing for its own traffic, you're also lending authority and expertise to the value landing page, where hopefully the client's going to see some sales qualified leads coming through.
Yeah. We had that. In fact, we ran an audit with Jess the other day, and there were certain keywords that we were targeting on specific pages, but we weren't ranking for those pages. Weren't ranking, but we had other pages that were ranking for them instead. So then we use that to inform our strategy and link internally, so that it passes on strength.
Yeah, exactly. And you can take that, even something that might be deemed as a mistake, it is all valuable data, and you can go away with that and, as you say, make it inform your strategy.
Okay, fantastic. So do you want to just summarize for us?
Yeah, so as I said at the start, this was geared towards exploring the 6 steps to consistent blog writing. Hopefully we've expanded on that a little bit and showed you that it's not just blog writing, it's content. But the primary things we wanted to cover were how important keyword research was, how to come up with your title suggestions, some of the basic principles of blog writing, how to approach the drafting process and how important it is, how to optimize and format your content, both in a Word document and for the CMS, and then what is the purpose behind your internal linking strategy and how that potentially links up with your paid search campaigns.
Brilliant. All right, thanks, Ben. Thanks a lot for that. Stick around. We're going to bring you back into a Q&A before we have a poll first, then we'll speak to Matt. But moving on, we're looking at an audience poll, and we're going to ask about page 1 rankings. So just off the top of your head, just as an audience, roughly how many page 1 rankings do you have? So you'll see a few options up there. If you can, well, it'd be great to talk about this at the end. And similarly, so we'll ask a second question whilst we can. Also, how many paid campaigns do you currently have running? So we find, and we'll go into this in a bit more detail, but clients can range from having hundreds of campaigns down to just a handful of campaigns or even none. So it's interesting to see how people approach that in terms of their overall strategy and how much control they have over their campaigns. So now to introduce our second guest, who hails from the city of Seven Hills. No, it's not Rome, unfortunately. It's Sheffield. Big warm welcome to our head of paid search, Matt Rafferty. Matt's going to show us how to set up a campaign in Google Ads. But before we start, Matt, what's your favourite Beatles song?
My favourite Beatles song is Helter Skelter.
Not one that I'm familiar with, but who wrote that?
Well, the Beatles did, yeah.
Brilliant answer. I was thinking you might be more of a Def Leppard or a Human League kind of guy from Sheffield, or Arctic Monkeys even.
Old school Arctic Monkeys and a bit of Def Leppard for me.
Brilliant. So, Matt, what are you going to talk to us about today?
So we're going to look at the very basics of how to set up a paid search campaign. We're going to look at the different goal guidance you get. We're going to look at locations. We're going to briefly look at some audiences that you can set up, and then speak a bit about remarketing.
Fantastic. And we do have additional videos and resources in the webinar pack.
I'll refer to more videos that we put up post-webinar explaining some of the things that I briefly glance over. But if you do have any questions or queries, feel free to shoot any of us an email. I'll get it through to you, and I'll be able to put together some little resources to be able to help you with your issues. Okay, so I'm sure you're all familiar with, or have at least seen pictures of, the overview of Google Ads. This is after you've logged in, given over your account details, and you're just brought through to the home page. You can see all the different aspects of Google Ads down the side here, and we're going to go straight to the campaign's homepage. So as you can see, this is actually back in 2016, so these are all enabled at the moment, so there's absolutely no data in for that. But we're going to go straight to the big plus button here. This will start a new campaign for you. And you're presented immediately with goal guidance from Google. So these range from sales, leads, website traffic, product and brand consideration, brand awareness and reach, app promotion, or no guidance.
So how does the goal you choose correspond with the customer journey or the type of product that you have?
Okay, so in relation to the customer journey, what you're looking at here with sales is someone who's very down at the bottom, is often familiar with your product already or knows exactly what they want to buy and haven't got any questions. They just want to get straight on in there, not necessarily submit a quote, but add to basket, check out, and have it sent straight to them.
So generally lower value.
Often lower value, but it would be nice to think that people are just dropping $50,000 on a new NMR machine.
Yeah. Okay, so what would you typically suggest for someone who's selling a piece of equipment, scientific equipment, for, I don't know, 10 to 50 grand?
So I generally suggest leads, because this enables you to push them through to your CRM system and monitor how the lead has grown. Initially, it might be a lead time of 2 to 3 weeks, or your lead time might be 2 to 3 years. Whereas this just enables you to classify them when you get them in your system. So it could be just a quick question of, hi, do you have this in stock ready to go in 3 weeks? Or I need to know more information because I need to fit my whole lab around this piece of equipment. So I generally suggest leads for those in the scientific industry. Website traffic and product and brand consideration, they roughly fit the same thing. So these three are all towards the top of your funnel. You want to really be focusing website traffic towards your organic side of things. So this is where your paid and organic strategies cross over. So you want to have a really strong website traffic for organic pieces of content before you really start with your paid search, because this will then come back to haunt you if you don't get it right and your quality scores are really low and you're actually having to bid incredibly high because Google just doesn't like the content that you're putting out.
Yeah, so I remember you were explaining to me what quality scores were on the adverts. Do you want to just touch on that a bit more?
Yeah, so the quality score is made up of a landing page experience. So this is how a user will be able to view your site and how useful the information is that you've provided compared to the keywords that you've bid against and the queries that triggered those keywords. We've also got the ad quality. So this is made up of the headlines you use, the URL that you put in. This is not necessarily the landing page URL, but the display URL. You can further enhance this by using ad extensions, which I will speak further on in a different video because there are a huge amount of them and they vary from user to user. We've also got the cost per click, so how much are you willing to bid to be seen by Google and to be put near the top of the page, as well as Google's expected click-through rate. So this is actually made up of their organic click-through rates as well as their paid click-through rates. And so they balance those up and say, well, if you're bidding on keyword X, we generally see a click-through rate of maybe 1.2%, fairly low, or they might say, well, keyword Y has actually got a click-through rate of 7%, which is pretty good. And they'll look at giving you a predicted click-through rate. And if you're not getting that click-through rate, there's something in your advert or on your landing page that people just aren't responding to. And they'll penalize you, unfortunately, for that as well.
Okay. So, yeah, well, back to this. Should we choose leads then?
Yeah, right. We'll go straight ahead with leads because that's what a nice guide through to it. So you can see here we've been presented with 5 different campaign types. So we've got search, display, shopping, video, and smart. So initially we're going to look at search. So this is what you're presented with when you put in your query into Google search, and you can see the little display on the top left. It'll say ad, and then maybe a few ads below that, and featured snippet if they're lucky, and then a bunch of other organic search results. Then we have display. You'll see these if you're playing, I don't know, Candy Crush on your phone, or you're viewing the football results online. These will appear in the banners and the sidebars. Shopping. So this will appear as the strip at the top of the page in Google search. So if you're searching for, I want size 12 football boots, these will appear as, well, here's 20 different pairs of size 12 football boots from all the different advertisers there, and they'll appear in the Google Shopping tab if you search them there. Video, so use this. I mean, we've got our resident in-house video and graphics experts. This is used often in YouTube or promotions, similar to display, but more informative.
Okay.
And then finally, we have smart. So not as smart as you'd think at first. It's sort of hand over your website and your credit card to Google, and they'll take it away. I would tend to leave it or use it initially, and then take the results that you found there that were useful, and then use them to build your own search and display campaigns.
Excellent. So for this, we're going to use search.
Yeah, it's a great place to start.
Okay, and yeah, what goal would you, or what would you suggest here?
So as we are digital marketing and online, I'd go with website visits. There are the options for phone calls, and this is useful if you are using a third-party piece of software to track the call and ensure that a conversion has taken place. They often use a unique phone number for different users to say that actually this was a conversion, you know where the call came from, and you know what happened on the call. However, this does need to be in line with your privacy policies, GDPR, and the California consumer rules have just been brought in, so especially in line with those in the US.
Yeah, I've used those before. It's very smart technology, tying in website visits to the phone call. It's pretty cool.
We've got store visits. These are especially useful, say if you're a large DIY store and the users are searching for you. Say I want to find a hammer in Nebraska. I've searched for hammers in Nebraska, and there are a bunch of stores that pop up. You can buy a hammer here, but you've got to make sure that the location is turned on. So these are for brick and mortar buildings. So you appear there, you might buy a hammer, and then Google, they're like, right, they searched for a hammer, they came to your store. Can you confirm that they bought a hammer? Yeah, they did.
Okay, so more B2C.
More B2C, yeah. App downloads, pretty self-explanatory. Do you have an app that needs to be downloaded? This is how you reach it, by downloading it from the Play Store, the iOS Store, or any other operating system that you're using.
Okay.
Lead form submissions. So this is a new one that Google's brought in, and it works in a similar way to the LinkedIn form submission if people have used that one before. And it pops up just below the advert, and it allows you to send a quote directly through to the business that you're interested in. It could autofill your details if you're logged in through your Google account, say like I have in Chrome here, but you need to be careful because it will strip the details that you're using directly out of there. So if you're using a nice, embarrassing personal email address, you might not want that going directly to the business you want to quote from.
Yeah, I think we've all got those. The email address that you had when you were a kid.
Oh yeah.
Right, okay, so we choose website visits and for azonetwork.com. And then we'll continue. Where do we go now?
So this section here, we've now got into the proper campaign settings. So you can see this is what we selected on the previous page. However, if you are unsure about any of it, you can just press the little pencil icon here and leave and just go back. And you can just have a scroll down and say, yeah, that's exactly what I need. Let's continue.
Okay.
Immediately, the next box down is your campaign name. This needs to be pretty usable for anybody that's been able to come onto your site. Say you've got a new team member and you're there like, right, I need you to review my Google ads. They're going to hop in here and say, oh, why have we got 24 different campaigns called lead search 11, lead search 12, lead search 13?
Yeah.
They're not going to know what on earth's going on here. So
can I make a suggestion on what we call this one?
Yeah, go for it.
So we're going to PitCon in a few weeks' time in Chicago. So can we set up our PitCon adverts campaign?
That sounds a very good idea. Yeah, let's go for that. Small PitCon one.
Double T.
Yep, not double C. PitCon 2020. And we're going to call it our search campaign, so we'll just stick that in there. So you can leave it as a search campaign in there, because when you come to your reporting section, it's often easy to see by just selecting your campaign name, what you're targeting, what type of campaign it was, without selecting all the extra metrics that you need to do at the end.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what will we looking at the networks there? What is the difference between the Google search partners and the Google display network? I never know what that is whenever I've had to deal with it. Please Enlighten me.
So Google Search Network and Google Display Network. So we saw them on the previous page, how you've got a display campaign and you've got a search campaign. Selecting both means that whatever your search advert is, it's collated and put into a display style MREC bar or little square box at the side. So this can be an issue because it means that the people that are directly searching for your query of PitCon 2020 are automatically served ads related to PitCon 2020 in the search. However, if they're on another website about PitCon or about Pittsburgh or about anything related to the information there, they're just shown your search ad, which they're not probably in the right frame of mind to actually view and get across the right information to them. So you need to split them into two separate versions, because otherwise you are spending your budget in an ineffective manner.
Okay.
So we'll unclick Google Display Network, Google Search Partners. So the search partners are other websites that have signed up to use the Google algorithms on their websites and the ability to serve adverts to other users. They might get a kickback from Google for that, or they might just use it to power their own internal search engines. Often this can dilute your budget a lot. So it looks fantastic. I've got 20 million impressions. I've got 4,000 clicks off the back of it, but I've got one conversion.
Yeah.
And this is an issue. So you really want to have a look at starting off with just what the pure long tail keywords that you're using after you've set up the campaigns, and then maybe include search partners in a different campaign, but initially just go with exactly what you're getting. So
just to clarify that, so Google Search Partners, that's anyone who's using the Google search bar, and that could be on whatever website.
Whatever website appears. So this is not necessarily a Google website themselves, but another website that uses a Google search bar.
Yeah, I know we've just actually implemented the Google search bar on azonetwork.com, but we're actually paying to not have adverts on there. So they monetize it either by you pay them to host the search bar, or they monetize it through advertising. So you don't want to turn up on any old website with your adverts by just having that box ticked.
Exactly.
And it says what most advertisers, if we go back, most advertisers use this.
Most advertisers include their ads on Google Search Partner sites. This is true because most people don't untick that because they don't necessarily know what it means and don't understand the dilution effect that it has.
Right. Well, let's debunk that myth, or explain it at least.
So yeah, and we've got this little show more settings here. So this is really useful if you are running your plan across the whole year, quarter by quarter. So you can set up all of your adverts from this quarter for next quarter and the following quarter to just run within those time frames, or just run within, as we can see, we're doing PitCon. So this will run from the start of PitCon, well, before the start of PitCon to when PitCon finishes. It's a really useful tool. It's sort of so you don't end up click and forget and you've spent $1,000 because you've gone on holiday for a week and your ad's gone viral.
Yeah.
So we've got a couple of other ones down here. So we've campaign URL options. This is a little bit trickier, something that I will go into in a further video, but it's more of a development tool or a web manager tool. We have dynamic search ad setting. So this is another one that I'll have to do in a different video. This is based on Google's index of your site or a page feed that you're using. Say that you want to promote your blog content, you can actually link up the say azonetwork.com/blogs, and we can link up our whole blog section to our Google ads, and we can show the new blogs as they appear and as they're published, and it'll update in accordance to that.
Brilliant. So yeah, I think it's becoming apparent here, certainly as a sort of generalist marketing manager, the kind of the rabbit hole that you can disappear under, the need. I know you've got lots of other videos that go into more detail on specific parts of this, but it is a full-time job being across Google Ads. And
as you can see with the previous one where they've just introduced the lead form submissions, there's new updates every few months from Google. They'll test out maybe some new programming they're going to put into place in terms of the new updated Google organic algorithms, and they'll just really like to throw extra bits and bobs in there, either to confuse you or to make your experience better. I've still not figured out which is their goal.
Yeah. So you take training regularly and
yeah, keep up to date with everything that's going on Google developers sites, on other paid marketing platforms. Some really great ones out there that I'll include some links at the bottom.
We're actually exhibiting at PitCon, exhibiting our marketing services. We put a lot of eggs in that basket, spent a lot of money, like lots of people do at trade shows. We want to maximize our trade show ROI. So how do I, ahead of time, target people who aren't necessarily from Chicago, but who are going to be in Chicago soon?
So we can click on the location option here. So you can see here that it's gone to people searching for your targeted locations. This is fantastic if you rent rooms in a hotel, you're a car service. So people in Chicago, or people interested in Chicago, say you want to go on holiday there, say you want to book a hotel there, like you've been seeing a lot of adverts for Chicago itself. That's what it'll serve there. However, people in or show interest in your target locations is the most useful one. So this is what you want for people who are going to be specifically in Chicago on those dates.
Okay.
We have the same options down here for exclusion. So, we don't want to show this to the rest of the world or people specifically in the place where PitCon is. So you can actually exclude the exact building that PitCon's in or the block that it's in, because there's going to be a lot of display around and external visuals for PitCon. You can actually say, I don't need to put my display adverts on for people within 25 miles of Chicago for today, because people there are already going to be heading to PitCon.
Yeah. Okay, so it's good to combine this as part of your trade show strategy.
Yeah, it's very, very useful.
Okay.
So we're going to move down to languages now, and this is key because you have the option to target every language that Google currently offers there. But you want to target the language that your keywords are focused on, that your landing page is in, and that your ads are written in. Otherwise, Google Translate might have a field day with translating your website or translating your adverts or not translating them at all. So it just doesn't make much sense to change the language.
Yeah. Okay. So pretty self-explanatory there.
Yep.
But yeah, if only target languages which your ads and your landing page copy are written in.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Here we have an audience section. So this is really useful for remarketing and very useful for ideas from Google or for looking at their different demographics.
Okay, so can we talk about remarketing?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so remarketing is something which I know we've had a lot of success with, but how would you balance your budget between sort of standard paid search and the remarketing?
So I'd look at most of your money needs to be going to getting your clients on board. Say 75% of it should be going to engaging people initially, and then 25% going towards remarketing. With those that are, say, falling out of the remarketing pipeline at the contact us form, say they've started to fill it in or they've gone to your contact us page, they're your most valuable people because they were so close to getting it all the way through and becoming a lead in your system, but they might have just dropped out. So you show them one version of the ad, then someone further up the funnel, you'll be like, well, we know you're interested in our product. Have you considered all the other products that we offer? Or another fantastic one, that these are the best ones. The clients and customers that you already have, say they've bought your NMR machine and you put in some solvents that make your NMR machine run like a dream. You know, in 3 months' time, they're going to run out of that solvent that you gave as a freebie along with your NMR machine. So what you do is you serve them adverts after 3 months. You can do this with your tracking that say, oh, do you need any more NMR solvent? And then they'd be like, oh, actually, yeah, we do. We've just run out of that NMR solvent that you gave us for free with the product that we bought from you. And so they'll come back to your site and they'll be a repeat purchaser of your NMR solvent because it made your machine run like a dream.
Fantastic. A cunning plan, Baldrick. Okay, but cost-wise, how does a remarketing click compare to a brand new user click?
So the remarketing click is a lot cheaper. It's about 1/10 of the price, and it can be even lower in some cases. So you might pay $2 for a click onto your site, and then later you might put display ad up, and that'll come back down as 2 cents.
Yeah.
So even lower than the 20 cents originally, but
yeah.
Well, the $2 down to 20 cents, down to 2 cents. It's just a lot cheaper to remarket to people.
So the hard bit is getting unknown visitors to your site.
Yeah, the hard bit is the engaging bit, and this is where it comes back to your organic and on-page content. You really need to engage them initially with what you're showing them in order to be able to get them back on board. Because even if they see it, they're like, actually, last time I came into your page, it wasn't very good or it wasn't very interesting. So they'll still see your advert. They won't click, but you really want to just get them on board with engaging content.
Okay.
So down here we have the budgeting. So you need to make sure that this doesn't go over what you actually want to spend across a month, which is your spend per day times 30.4. So if you've got a budget of $1,000 a month, it's 1,000 divided by 30.4. This will fluctuate day by day. So say on day one, it'll spend 10% of your budget, but then on the next day, like, wow, we spent way too much. It'll spend 1% the next day, and then over the course of the month, it won't go over budget, hopefully, unless someone's been inside your Google Ads playing around without your knowledge.
It won't. Okay, yeah. So that's comforting to know, because sometimes it does go over, and you think, oh God, am I going to carry on at that rate for the end of the month? But nice to know.
Yep. Here we have a bidding section. So this enables you to choose the type of bidding that you want to go for. So we have conversions, conversion value, useful if you have a web shop, and you can just put in the cost of the different products. You can link this in with your schema or the shopping section. Clicks and impression share, again, this is more towards brand consideration and awareness. And then you can set a target cost per action. So you could say, right, we're getting $50 a lead on LinkedIn. We want to emulate this on Google and throw $50 a lead in for conversions here.
Right, but I'd be expecting a bit lower on Google compared to LinkedIn,
Yeah.
LinkedIn's a professional network. There's already that higher level of quality user. Almost everyone on there is valuable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
However, I would suggest going for bid strategy directly and going for manual CPC.
And why is that?
This just enables you to control the way that your keywords are found. You will have more valuable keywords that people further down the funnel say, buy NMR machine, purchase NMR machine, NMR machine suppliers. That's more of a I want to know who is an NMR supplier. However, the buy NMR machine, they're already in that bottom stage that I want to buy. So we saw earlier on with the 4 different points that Google says are the 4 different contact types of intent. That comes straight into play with the bidding types.
Okay. So, but manual CPC, a bit more work, I presume.
Bit more work initially, but it is worth it.
Okay.
Here we have the conversions, the ad schedule, ad rotation. So conversions, these are actually set up over here in your measurement section. So your conversions, you need to make, I often import them from Google Analytics because it's a really, really useful place to set them up, or you can set them up in Google Ads. It's up to you, just whichever you're more comfortable with and can actually track from the inquiry coming in through to the actual lead and sale completed.
Yeah. Fantastic. And I know that you've actually set up for us so that goes all the way through to the CRM. And whenever we have a new lead come in, we're able to see, oh, that came from the paid campaign or that came from this campaign. It's as a marketer, it's incredibly useful. And it means that I can give you more budget with more confidence.
Yeah.
All right.
So we're going to move straight on into ad scheduling. So we have down here the different types. Say that, well, I only want to show my ad on Wednesdays, you can select Wednesdays.
Yeah.
However, it's really useful just to set up Mondays to Fridays, midnight to midnight, and Saturdays and Sundays, midnight to midnight. I would exclude these unless you have an automated phone system. And if you're sharing a phone number, put in your business hours. Otherwise, people are going to be clicking on your phone numbers, leaving a bunch of messages, and it's still going to cost you, but you're not going to be able to serve them the actual times.
Okay. Cool.
Ad rotation, optimize, just best performing ads. So this is the one that will have the more clicks or conversions within that, or do not optimize. So this means that eternally, if you put in 3 adverts, they're always going to be shown on repeat. And this works if you're on it in terms of your optimization in-house and you're already looking at how can we improve our ad copy, and every week you'll look down and say, right, these 3 ads were on rotation this week. This one had great clicks. This one had great conversions. Right, we'll combine the 2. We'll mash up our ads and we'll create the Uber ad.
Okay.
But generally go for this one. Okay. Best performing adverts.
Good.
And there we have the ad extensions, which will be in a later video. But there we go. 15% higher click-through rate, which is true because it enables you to put on more links instead of just your straight landing page. You can put on your blog, you can put on your get in contact, you can put your call extensions, site links, and a bunch more. But I will go into those in a further video.
Can you just show us what they look like quickly?
So yeah, this is a site link extension. So we have some set up at the moment for customer testimonials.
Yeah.
The marketing science agency, saying what we're about. This is our blog. This is directly through to what we do in terms of the previous stuff that Ben's spoken about, and then our other marketing solutions.
Yeah, that's I mean that's intriguing. I won't profess to understand it fully, but I do. In fact, we've got the other video, which is available in the resource centre. So I'd urge you to go and check that out because it's incredibly informative.
I think that's it from me for a brief wrap up now. I'll run into the ad groups, ad creation in a different video, just because there are, again, so many nuances with that, and I think it deserves its own section. Fantastic.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks a lot for that, Matt. Okay, so we're just going to bring Ben back into the conversation. We've got a few questions that have come in. First question, are there any quick wins where paid campaigns complement the organic? So Matt, I'll ask you that.
Yeah, so when you've set up your keywords and they're going really well and you've had a fantastic number of clicks and you've got some great conversions, what you want to do there is you want to sit down, look at your conversions and look at the queries that people put in before they converted. And then from there, you can create an optimized organic landing page that targets that search query and means that you're actually creating a better landing page for those keywords that you're targeting and in terms of the queries organically. So it means that you're getting 2 bites at the cherry. You're getting your ad at the top because the quality score is now raised because you've now got a customized landing page for the queries that people convert well on.
Yeah.
And then you get hopefully the featured snippet or the top position for the same keyword. Say it's cheap TVs, you found out that you convert really well for cheap TVs, well then let's create a custom landing page for cheap TVs and then have both the paid search campaign and the organic search campaign winning.
Well, I remember we did that with a few of our keywords. Life science marketing, I think, was the one that springs to mind. Fantastic. Well, thanks for that. Another question here come in about the lead form submissions and GDPR. So how does that work with GDPR? In the Google lead form submissions, that is.
Yeah, so with the lead form submission, this is a classic. Google has washed its hands of it and has a back-to-back policy, which means that you are completely in charge of and liable for all the GDPR sections of it. It means that your privacy policy needs to be in there and it needs to be watertight.
Okay, so yeah, swerving that one, Google.
Yeah.
One which I think would probably be better for Ben to ask. So yeah, please keep the questions coming in. But we've got one here asking about blog frequency. How often should you be posting content?
Yeah, so that really depends on the size of your site and the sort of scale of your competition. So
For clients, I tend to work on a fortnightly basis, so I'll be churning them out once every 2 weeks. That really does depend. For others, I'll be writing it 1 a week. I've written as many as 3 a week for some. I read an article recently that the Huffington Post churns out 400 blog posts a day. Obviously, that's an enormous site, and most listeners have probably read an article or have at least seen an article from the Huffington Post, and you see why. The frequency that they're putting them out is they're getting them in front of people consistently. Likelihood is you're not that size of an enterprise, and you would benefit from at least posting once every 2 weeks.
Okay.
If you are ranking highly for a lot of your high valuable search terms, you can even start to slow that process down a little bit, post once a month, and then divert those resources to somewhere else.
Okay, so where you're posting, I suppose, where you've been posting sort of 2 or 3 times a week, is that more B2C? Is that more competitive landscape? Or?
Yeah, it tends to be. It'll be more in the lines of financial and customer-based sorts of things. So there was one, funeral services was one that springs to mind, and another one which was pension financial claims, both very competitive areas, very dry areas. So you do need to keep it fresh with new content.
Yeah, you have to keep your morale up when you're working on those.
Definitely.
So a question coming here, Matt, I think this one's probably best answered by yourself. How do you turn an underperforming campaign around?
So what you have to do there is you need to make sure that all the metrics you're reviewing are actually on for your KPIs, and why aren't they hitting them? Well, let's have a look at the quality scores. Which bit of the quality score is failing me? Is it my bid strategy? Is it the amount I'm bidding? Is it the landing page? Is it the ad text? And how are you going to be able to fix this short term? Well, maybe you'll have to pause an advert, maybe you have to pause a campaign, but it's better than wasting budget on things that aren't converting.
And a lot of A/B testing, and a lot of isolating the problem, and then trial and error.
Yeah, a lot of isolation of the problems. Yeah, trial and error is very useful, but as standard practice, you should always have about 3 ads per ad group, and always have something that is being tested to enable you to just keep up with Google algorithm changes and be able to enhance your own performance continuously, because nobody likes a flat line.
Yeah, okay. So I suppose in that experimentation, that's where the analytical chemistry background comes in handy.
Exactly.
Nice one. Okay, so how often does Google read my site? That will just come in. Does it read every page?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So good rule of thumb is that it tends to read sites once a month. It will attempt to go through every single page using the sitemap as a sort of almost like a road plan. It will look through it and crawl through all of those pages, expecting to find all of the ones that fall under the sitemap. Whether or not it reads every single page really depends on how crawlable your site is, how complex it is, whether or not you've got any errors. So if Google comes up against 404s, things like that, incorrect redirects, even having a poor URL structure, it might not be able to access all areas of your site, and then you will essentially be penalized. You can also, if you've made any significant changes to the site and you want to essentially notify Google that you want this read, you think it's an improvement, you can go into Search Console and request that that your site is recrawled.
Okay, so what do you do with 404s?
You essentially just need to get down to the root cause of the problem, and then whether it's recreating a page or setting up a redirect, it really depends, as I say, on what the actual underlying issue is.
Yeah, I know Jess has been working on some of that for us. It's alarming when you do the actual health check. And we do search engine marketing, and we work closely with you guys, obviously, but sitting in the meeting with her, and she says, well, we've got a page full of errors here. These are all 404 redirects. These are sort of dead pages. These keywords aren't ranking as highly as we anticipated, whereas these pages are. It's a huge rabbit hole, like you say.
It's easily done as well with outdated URL structures and slightly duplicated with slight differences, both pointing towards the same page. There's a lot of ways that you can have these what seem like minor errors, but as soon as you've done an actual report on them, they rapidly pile up.
Yeah. Fantastic. Right. So we've had another question come in. How So Ben, what determines whether a blog has been a success? How do you measure that?
Yeah, so there's a number of KPIs that you can actually track to figure out whether or not you've been successful in writing a particular blog post. One of the simplest ones is obviously to just check its position in Google. If you've achieved between 1 and 3, and ideally if you've got a featured snippet box, that is golden standard, because I don't have the figures off the top of my head, but the amount of traffic that goes to page 1, that goes to page 1 positions, particularly position 1 and featured snippets, is just inordinate. It's massively different compared to those bottom ones, and the fraction of traffic that goes to page 2 is essentially negligible. So if you're not in page 1, you're essentially not appearing before the people who are doing those search terms. You want to check how many times people are visiting that particular blog. Interactions through CTAs. You can go into Google Analytics and you can actually track the breadcrumbs with a little bit of tinkering in that, and you can see, you can essentially capture the data to see if somebody has filled in a form, if they have come through to that form within a few steps from that blog post. So you can actually start to find out if somebody has found this blog post organically, where they've then navigated to on the site, and then when you've captured them as an actual lead. Okay,
I'm going to ask the obvious question. What are the breadcrumbs?
So it's essentially the steps that they've gone through once they've entered your site. So there's the point at which they land, which in this example would be the blog. And then if they've followed an internal link, that would be the next step. And essentially you follow that typically within a series of 4 steps. So if we've captured them on the blog page, if they have gone from the blog page through internal links, and they've filled in a submission form within 4 clicks, then that would be a success.
So a user journey.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. All right. So I have a question. What are the biggest issues that you see with people in paid and organic search? What are the most common sort of SEO issues?
Oh, it's Pandora's box. I think it's in our industry, which is science and technology, it's just a lack of understanding of very basic principles, and some of the things we've tried to dispel in this webinar, I think they are they're proponents of. They think that it is SEO, organic versus paid, it is Google versus user, and trying to show our clients that it is a much more dynamic and organic process, and you can lean on each other. Matt and I are working together with clients who've got both AdWords campaigns and organic SEO campaigns, trying to show them that it is this whole holistic process. I think for me is probably like the foundational problem, which underlines every other problem that we then have.
So Google, I suppose, writing for Google and writing for the user experience.
Yeah, exactly.
It's never been more the same or more similar. It's been converging ever since Google.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, fantastic. So that kind of seems you've opened my eyes, because I'm sort of I was unconsciously incompetent. Now I'm consciously incompetent. So I know I don't know. I can barely scratch the surface of my knowledge on organic SEO and paid search. But I can imagine that lots of people out there are in the same sort of situation. But it's just understanding that and realizing where you need to bring in a bit of help or ask for help.
Yeah, I'd say that is one of the biggest issues, is people just not asking for help. If you are having issues with any of the stuff, people will be there to help you.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised the amount of people that are also suffering from similar issues. So always stick your hand up and just go, right, I'm having issues with this. Has anybody else had a similar problem? You'd be fine that 50 other people are waiting for that first person to do it.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, on the subject of help, we're back onto the topic of the Beatles again. So
you got a good joke about it, haven't you?
Oh, we're not going into that right
now. All right, brilliant. Well, thanks a lot, guys. I think that just wraps things up. Thank you for everyone for listening. Just before we go, you can catch us. Please feel free to reach out to us via the Contact Us page or via azonetwork.com. We've got loads of great resources on the blog. We've got a host of resources in the webinar center, including lots of extra content from Matt, where we dive into the rabbit hole that is paid search and Google Ads. We'll be at PitCon 2020 in Chicago, late February, early March, booth 2148. feel free to stop by and have a chat. I'll be there along with Dave, who is our head of the SEO and search team. We'll also be at the other shows that you can see here throughout the year, all the way through to December. And you can find out more there and the link on azonetwork.com. Okay, so thanks a lot for listening, and hopefully we'll see you soon in the future.